Welcome, everyone. I'm Dean John Haskins of the Graduate School of Journalism, and I want to welcome everyone today to graduation for 2021. The ceremony today will look at a video of the Dean speaking to students today, also our graduation speaker, Marty Barron, and also the president of the Student Society of Professional Journalists will speak also. After that, we will present the graduates, and each of you will have a chance to come to the front of the room and collect your envelope and be seen live on camera for your graduation ceremony as your name is called. So now, without further ado, if we could begin the video.
Hello, everybody. I'm Steve Call. I'm the Dean of the Graduate School of Journalism at Columbia, and I'm here to welcome all of you to this commencement ceremony. I'm sorry that we're doing it remotely in part, but I'm delighted to be together with you and with your friends and family to celebrate this extraordinary class of 2021. Congratulations to all of you. I know from my years here that when students reach an achievement like this, it's usually because they've got support. They've got support behind them that we don't always see at the school in the form of friends and family. And I hope many of your friends and family are tuning in today to celebrate your achievement. And I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge them and to ask you to thank them too. Parents, friends, family, thank you for everything you did to help this extraordinary class through these difficult times to reach this moment of celebration. Okay, I'm just going to talk a little bit now to the class of 2021. First with gratitude. What a group you turned out to be. I think you're probably bored by now of being told by your faculty how great you are and how intrepid and brave you were to come work with us this year. And yet, I want you to hear it again, maybe in a slightly different way. I think your faculty, and they really do think you are the best class they've had to work with in memory. And I think one of the reasons is that in journalism, as you probably already know, the most important skill set sometimes is just motivation. And if you came to New York City in the fall or the winter of 2020, 2021, to study journalism in these conditions, obviously you were motivated. And it showed up. It showed up in the classroom. It showed up in your commitment to your work, to your learning, and to your reporting, most of all, because you were out there on the streets in difficult conditions, pressing forward in just extraordinary ways. It's going to serve you very well, I think we all believe. But we also were just so impressed that we sort of start thinking, well, in the future we'll have to figure out how to admit to Columbia only students who would have come to New York City during a pandemic the way you did. I also want to acknowledge what a difficult year it was for you. For many of you, you had to deal with isolation. You had to deal with illness. Some of you got sick. Some of you knew people who got sick. Some of you had to worry about family. Some of you had to figure out how to do a really hard course of work while also figuring out how to keep safe, how to get from one place to another, how to report while adhering to sometimes constraining public health protocols. You did it really, really well. And I think one thing that impressed me about that was, how ethical many of you were in your thinking about working in these conditions. I have a vague memory of what it was like to feel young and invincible, and I know many of you felt like you could weather this disease, but what impressed me was that you didn't think about it that way when you spoke about it. You talked about keeping others safe and practicing your own care for the sake of others. And that was a frontier of ethical journalism that was kind of new for all of us, and I thought you handled it really impressively. I do think you'll be strengthened by this experience. I hope so. Journalism does require stress management, whether it's dealing with a 2-hour deadline or finding yourself in an unexpected public square where things are chaotic and you've got a short time to gather quotes and make sense of the big picture. And we all learn in the first third or half of our careers, I think, how to manage our personal thermostat. So when things get hot, you kind of find a level. And you certainly have had a head start in managing that kind of professional stress. And again, you've done it very impressively. You know, we've talked a lot this year, and I'm sure you'll hear from others, about how you're graduating at a time when journalism is changing. A lot of the big ideas that used to be considered at this school, kind of high church orthodoxy, objectivity, for example, being challenged, including by you, which is exactly how it should be. Journalism stagnates when it isn't renewed by generational change within its own ranks. You know, in the 60s, it was the young reporters in Vietnam who started filing stories about how the war was really going. Stories sometimes their editors didn't want to print because they so challenged people's assumptions. And journalism repeatedly stagnates and misses big stories when editors and producers aren't being challenged from within their own newsrooms as well as by their readers and by society. That feedback loop is what journalism requires. So we need your questions. We need better newsrooms. We need more diverse and inclusive newsrooms. We need better stories, better frameworks. We need to see around more corners. And we need you to lead this change, as I feel confident you will. You know, there are Columbia graduates in positions of leadership or influence in every major newsroom in the United States and in many countries elsewhere around the world. And in 10 years or 20 years, I expect many of you to be those people, and I couldn't be more proud or optimistic about what you'll do with those opportunities. You know, change is intrinsic in journalism, in open societies and democracies. It's something to be welcomed. But I think you probably heard by now that your faculty here, you know, all 40 of us or so, you know, we have very different backgrounds and different kinds of practices as journalists and different specialties. But we really are united around some core values that I hope we've gotten across by now and persuaded you of, or at least persuaded most of you of most of these values. And I think the one that sort of looms largest to me in this time of change, welcome change in our profession, needed change, is the centrality of evidence in what we do. That we are evidence-led, no matter what our framework, no matter what our story list. That we don't collect facts to prove a hypothesis or a belief that we already held. Each time we report, we go on a journey of discovery. I think if that kind of reporting, honest, intellectually honest reporting, evidence-led reporting, it's where the great work always comes from. And I know that you've probably already figured out that the more you report this way, the more you realize that whatever you thought at the beginning of a story is almost certainly wrong. You just need to figure out what about it is wrong, because there's always a journey of discovery. There are always new facts. And also, you know, a lot of the people who you think are on the side of good and right, you know, they turn out to be complicated and maybe less virtuous than they first appear. I remember when I first went abroad as a reporter, my experienced editor said to me as I was getting on the elevator, he said, "Remember, there are no good guys." Okay. I actually don't believe that, but I remember that phrase because as a journalist, it's a form of routinized skepticism and practice that will save you from mistakes, but also lead you to discoveries that really resonate on the page or on the screen. Doesn't mean that we have to do things the old-fashioned way or sort of surrender ourselves to orthodoxy. There have always been many journalisms, and I think you're coming into a profession where there are even more journalisms than certainly any time maybe since the Second World War. It's an open field in that respect and one that you can shape. But how do you figure out how to synthesize these core values that we do have conviction in with these new kind of methodologies, these new frameworks, these new ways of seeing, of defining priorities? I think that's what's ahead of you. I was struck once when I was first here, I was invited to talk to a newsroom called Fusion. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it was a collaboration of a couple of television networks, including Univision, and it was decidedly young by design. And so I went to speak to the newsroom, and they all kind of looked like you, mostly under 30, diverse, interesting, full of energy. And as we got started, I said, well, so what's your mission? And they said, well, we are here to do journalism that is for millennials and that is framed around a commitment to a more diverse society and the legalization of marijuana. I thought, okay, all right, I get the first part, the legalization of marijuana. What does that mean for your journalism? Apart from questions of workplace sobriety. And we got into this very interesting discussion that if you're a news organization that is committed to the principle of decriminalization of marijuana, when you cover legalization in the state of Colorado, does that mean you break the truth about how the system isn't working? Or does that mean that you kind of hedge your bets or pull your punches because you don't want to influence public policy against your own goal? Well, I think our approach, Columbia's approach, is the first one. It's fine to have that framework for that journalism, but you should be the ones telling the truth about your own field of interest. So, thank you. Thank you for your conduct this year. Thank you for your care to one another, your sense of responsibility to one another and to the school. Thank you for your work, which is extraordinary. And count on us. We're your friends. We are committed to you for the rest of your careers. Reach out to us, ask for help, ask for references. We'll be delighted to support you. And have fun. I know this was a tough year, but I know also that you had a taste of what a joyful way to make a living journalism can be. Out there on the street, driving around in cars during elections, knocking on doors, stumbling into public life in ways that is really a privilege to do. And I hope that spirit of what brought you to this field in the first place has survived these trials, along with so much else about your commitment to journalism. So thank you, be good, and please stay in touch. Now it's my honor to introduce Marty Baron, the very recently retired editor of the Washington Post, where he had a storied run after equally exemplary roles as editor at the Boston Globe, which was memorialized in the movie Spotlight, and before that at the New York Times, the Miami Herald, LA Times, one of the great editors of his or any generation. I remember very well after the election of Donald Trump when journalists and the public were trying to get their bearings about how the press should respond to this unusual presidency. And Marty said something that always has stayed with me, and that was to his own newsroom. He said, "We're not at war, we're at work. This is what journalists do. When the world goes haywire, they run to the story. They cover people in power." And that's what the Washington Post did with extraordinary distinction for the last 4 years. I really look forward to hearing what Marty has to say. Please welcome Marty Baron.
I was taken by surprise when Dean Call told me early last month that I would receive this year's Columbia Journalism Award. I am deeply honored to have been selected. The list of winners over the years is remarkable. It is impossible to read that list and not feel privileged, as I do, to be a journalist, to be in a profession that includes such exceptional writers, storytellers, interviewers, investigators, explainers, interpreters, and commentators. For 45 years, 20 as the top editor, I was fortunate to work among people I admired and who inspired me. When I see Maria Ressa on the list as the winner in 2019, I am reminded also that throughout the world, journalists face burdens and threats far greater than I ever have. For years, she has been persecuted by the Philippines government for reporting the truth. She is a brave and indomitable human being. In Maria's case, we are witness to what suppression of a free press and free expression looks like. It seeks not just to punish its direct targets like Maria, but also to crush the spirit of all who might report what the government aims to conceal or deny. Yet Maria's spirit remains as strong as ever. We owe her our continuing support, as we do journalists everywhere who put their lives and their freedom at risk, simply for reporting what fellow citizens deserve to know. I want to express particular gratitude to the Columbia University journalism faculty, which voted on this award. The work you do is essential. The journalists who graduate this year will define our profession. Their skills will determine whether our business succeeds or falters. Their principles will determine whether we stay true to our mission of discovering the truth and telling it. Their standards and practices will communicate to the public whether we deserve their confidence or not. I graduated from a university that was known most for engineering, not journalism. At the time, even the sports teams were known as the Engineers. The logo was an engineer with a surveying instrument, with a plane and train passing by. As you might imagine, it was hard to come up with a mascot, and there wasn't one. No wonder they later changed the name to the Mountain Hawks. If there had been an award voted on by the journalism faculty, and if there had been disagreement, it would have been an insoluble quandary, because only 2 professors taught journalism when I arrived at Lehigh University in 1972. But they were wonderful. They made an immense difference in my life and career. Both have passed away, and the journalism department has grown considerably. But those 2 professors are the overwhelming reason I remain immensely loyal to my alma mater. Teachers make a difference. Bob Sullivan was a steady, sweet, serious, avuncular man. He was meticulous in his story edits. He was patient in explaining what was wrong and what could be better. But he was exacting too. He took off a full grade for each and every inaccuracy. No error was minor, because each undermined confidence that we would get the bigger things right. He demanded fairness. We were to give everyone a fair hearing, to genuinely listen to what they had to say, to let reporting provide clarity, and not presume that we knew all the answers before we started asking the questions. But we were supposed to ask good and tough questions, and to dig hard for the facts. Joe McFadden, Mac as we called him, was boisterous, argumentative, routinely profane, and loads of fun, primarily because he was preternaturally outrageous. He rejoiced whenever our school newspaper, the Brown and White, disclosed secrets of the administration, and then he defended us when the university president and his minions wanted him to rein us in. He celebrated those who could expose nonsense and corruption for what it was. He hated pomposity and pretense. He cherished free expression, especially his own. Mac was a serious student of the First Amendment. His Law of the Press lecture class was ridiculously popular, with hundreds of students. Imagine that. That's partially because he was hugely entertaining, and probably mostly because it was the biggest gut on campus. The result, though, was that hundreds of students, including engineers and business majors, learned something about the fundamental right to free expression and a free press. And in his mind, I imagine, that was a damn good thing. In truth, I could have used more journalism professors. They could have filled in a lot of gaps. I probably should have made a stop a few years later at Columbia J School if they would have taken me. Still, it's amazing as I look back on my 4 college years with Bob Sullivan and Joe McFadden and the years that followed as our relationship evolved into friendship, how much influence they had on me and what I believe about journalism. I believe that the First Amendment calls on us to do exactly what James Madison had in mind when he crafted it: freely examine public characters and measures, which is to say, hold to account those with power, particularly those who are entrusted to govern. I believe that the rights granted us in the Constitution are meaningless unless we exercise them, that we cannot let fear or denunciation or recrimination deter us from our most essential work. I believe these are rights we have to defend with all the energy we possess. Our predecessors in this profession did that for us. We must do it for those who follow. I believe we have a special obligation to expose wrongdoing. The more powerful the individual or institution, the greater the necessity to expose abuse when we can document it. The less powerful the victims of abuse, the greater the urgency for us to give them a voice. I also believe that we have a duty to be fair and open-minded, and honorable and honest and accurate in our endeavors. I believe our profession would benefit from listening more to the public and from talking less at the public as if we knew it all. I believe we should be more impressed with what we don't know than with what we know or think we know. We should avoid hubris and show more humility. We might better appreciate that the world is filled with nuance and complexity. The collective life experiences of all of us in a newsroom are invaluable, but every individual's life experience is inescapably limited. Life experience can inform us, but never should it limit us. There is an immense universe beyond the lives we ourselves have lived, and if there are constraints on our capacity to understand it, we should strive to extinguish them. The composition of a news staff is not fully reflective of the public we cover, not even close. We are not the caricature our critics make of us, but neither do our newsrooms encompass the totality of this country. That means we have to work harder at our primary task, which is to look outside of ourselves and into the lives of others. I made a statement in my retirement note to staff this year that reflects my belief. We start with more questions than answers, inclined more to curiosity and inquiry than to certitude. We always have more to learn. We must listen generously to all. This gets at a point that my friend and competitor, Dean Baquet, executive editor of the New York Times, eloquently articulated recently in a speech while accepting a different award. I thoroughly embrace his perspective, and so I'm going to grab a portion of his remarks and excerpt them here. Dean said, "My theory, secretly shared by many editors I know and respect, is that one of the major crises in our profession is the erosion of the primacy of reporting. There is not enough talk about the beauty of open-minded and empathetic reporting, and the fear that its value will fade in an era where hot takes, quick analysis, and riffs are held in such high esteem. Certainty," Dean said, "is one of the enemies of great reporting." And he called upon reporting to be, quote, "restored to the center." Dean quoted Jason DeParle, the New York Times' superb reporter on poverty in America. The great lesson of reporting, Jason said, is that the world is almost always more complicated and unlikely than it seems while sitting at your desk. There has been a lot of debate about objectivity these days. Some journalists, particularly younger ones, seem ready to throw the idea out with today's trash. But let's understand what it really means before we consider junking it. It doesn't mean that we don't have our own opinions. It doesn't mean balance or both sidesism or neutrality. It doesn't mean that we are amoral. It means an openness, an open-mindedness, a fairness, a willingness to listen, an eagerness to learn, a recognition that there is much for us to know and that discovering it requires constant, serious effort. It recognizes that we don't come with the answers, we go seeking them. It recognizes that the world is more nuanced than we might first imagine. It recognizes that our instincts are not unerring. It discourages impulsiveness. It encourages immersiveness. It's not that we know nothing when we embark on our reporting. It's that we don't know everything, or that we don't know much, or perhaps even most of what we should, or that what we think we know may not be right, or may be missing some important pieces. And so we set out conscientiously to learn what we do not know. If that's not what we mean by genuine reporting, what do we mean? Reporting is what we as journalists have to offer that no one else can. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has feelings. Everyone is capable of expressing them in some fashion or another. Not everyone can report. We can tell the world what they don't know. We are granted the priceless opportunity to learn what we ourselves don't know. That must be our focus. How do we do more of it? How do we do it better? At the Washington Post, the first principle, established in 1935, is to tell the truth as nearly as the truth may be ascertained. When I've cited that principle on other occasions, I've noted its signal that there is such a thing as truth. There is objective reality. There are objective facts. And they are not just matters of opinion, or of who holds power, or who has the loudest megaphone, or who benefits. But there is another idea embedded in that first principle of the Washington Post: ascertainment. That is, the process of finding something out for certain. Moving away from what we think, believe, or feel. Moving toward what we can know. That's the journey we must make. And as that principle suggests with its language, as nearly as the truth may be ascertained, the process is difficult. The truth can be elusive. Getting at it requires work. When I look back on the biggest stories of my career, reporting is where I see our greatest value. I believe that is where readers see the greatest value in an independent press as well. I was in Florida for the 2000 presidential election, the contest between George W. Bush and Al Gore. Florida would determine the winner, and the count had Bush a mere 537 votes ahead of Gore. When the U.S. Supreme Court denied a recount, as requested by Gore, Bush became the president-elect. At the Miami Herald, we decided to do our own recount, going to all 67 counties and examining the ballots for ourselves, taking advantage of Florida's expansive public records law. We argued successfully that the ballots were themselves public records. We hired a major accounting firm to do its own independent recount. The conclusion of our exhaustive research was that George Bush almost certainly won. The result belied the claims of Republicans that our goal was to delegitimize the Bush presidency. We had no agenda other than to know the facts. We felt the American public deserved that. That was reporting. It was hard and expensive. It bore no allegiance to any ideology or party. And it took an institution of credibility and integrity and independence to do it. When I landed in Boston in the summer of 2001, we immediately embarked on an investigation of how the Catholic Church handled allegations of sexual abuse by clergy. The Boston Globe Spotlight team took that on, and we went to court to unseal documents that would reveal the truth. When the stories were in draft form before publication, I made sure that we stripped them of almost all adjectives and what might be deemed colorful language. I did not want potential critics to seize on those words to question our motives and discredit our work, distracting from the strength of documentary evidence. The internet was coming into its own then with high-speed broadband connections, which would soon usher in mobile devices and online video. The internet allowed what New York University professor Clay Shirky has called super distribution of the story, giving a story from a local news organization worldwide impact and allowing individuals to organize online and press the church for reform. So when people ask me whether the internet is good for journalism, I say generally yes, and super distribution is largely why. But there was no social media then. Facebook and Twitter had yet to be founded. And as I reflect on it, I see that as a stroke of luck. Critics would have seized on anything we handed them to disparage us and question our motives. Odds are that on social media, someone would have handed them something that, however accurate or morally justified, would have provoked unhelpful controversy and distraction because of its tone, its taste, or its timing. Those are all factors, by the way, that we consider highly relevant in any normal journalistic process that seeks the public's respect. My view then was that reporting, carefully edited, needed to do the talking. And in fact, it spoke volumes. My view today is the same. Reporting is the power. That investigation of the church, its documentation of a decades-long cover-up of clergy sexual abuse, had an enduring, transformative impact on an institution of worldwide reach and on how allegations of sexual abuse were handled in other instances, whether at Penn State or in the Boy Scouts. It took an institution of credibility and integrity like the Boston Globe to do work of that sort. Institutions like the Boston Globe and the Miami Herald are worth protecting and strengthening. They can marshal the resources to do ambitious work in their communities. Reputable, trusted institutions of the press really matter. At the Washington Post, over the course of 4 years, we held the Trump administration to account. The Post does that with all administrations. It is doing the same now with the Biden administration. It did the same with the Obama administration. We in journalism hold power to account because that is our central mission in a democracy. To do that, we need to build and maintain strong institutions of the press. What makes them strong? A record of credibility and integrity, a set of principles that guides the work, day-to-day practices by all who work there that engender respect, confidence, and trust. From the start, Trump and his allies called us the opposition party, and then they called us worse, enemies of the people and traitors to the country. On his first full day in office, Trump said he was at war with the media, and he surely was. Months later, I said, we are not at war with the administration. We are at work. I understand that some in our profession thought otherwise. Some saw a war, whether we wished for it or not, because at stake were values we all hold dear. Equity, justice, tolerance, diversity, empathy, civility, a free press among them. And they saw the policies and rhetoric of the previous president as an assault on those values. There is an important place in our society for commentary on all that transpires in government and in other centers of power. Sharp commentary. There is a place for advocacy, vigorous advocacy. There is a place for activism. We saw that vividly in America's streets last year in the righteous calls for racial justice. There is also a place, separate and distinct, for reporting pursued in a spirit of clear independence, where we are activists for only one thing: getting at the truth, telling the public what is really going on, who is responsible for these decisions, how decisions were made and why, who will feel the impact and how, why we must care. In the news department, that is our job, the active search for truth. We can document the truth with hard work and high standards. Never has that job been more important than in this time, when falsehoods and outright lies are so common, when a president of the United States waged war on the press, when he sought to disqualify all independent arbiters of fact, including leading scientists and health professionals, even as hundreds of thousands died in a worldwide health crisis. And even worse, when he sought to obliterate the very idea of objective fact so that people would disbelieve what they could see with their own eyes and hear with their own ears, and instead believe that the truth was only what he said it was, despite contradiction by all evidence. The answer to the lies is to make our reporting unassailable, impregnable, fully deserving of the public's trust. If the reporting bears up over time, our profession can withstand the pressures brought against it. Great reporting has long shined light where it was needed. We can do even better, of course, and we must keep trying. Self-examination is healthy. Each of us can cite many failures. We make mistakes. Journalists suffer from the imperfections of being human. But there is much to celebrate about what skillful journalism has achieved. It is no exaggeration to say that it has sustained our democracy. Time and again, I've seen the power of journalism that serves our highest principles and meets our highest standards. In my career, that brand of journalism has been my cause. My hope for this year's Columbia Journalism graduates is that it will be your cause too. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the Columbia Journalism Award, and thank you for the honor of being with you.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce Chris Riata, the president of the Columbia chapter of SBJ, for your class of 2021. Chris?
To the faculty and staff at Columbia Journalism School and to our audience from all over the world, thank you for joining us today. To the Columbia Journalism School class of 2021, congratulations. We have finally made it to this point, despite the enormous and unprecedented obstacles that stood in our way. Each of us was compelled to attend this school and join the incredible community of alumni, educators, and journalists that comes with it by a driving force: change. We want to tell stories that change the world. It's an unabashed and all-consuming motivation for the reporters I know, more so than getting their byline in the New York Times or some FaceTime on CNN. It's what pushes us to continue when the industry undergoes yet another round of nationwide layoffs. It's the thing that keeps us up at night, writing endless copy or poring over documents, figuring out how to get folks to pay attention. Not to us, but to the story, whatever story it may be, the one where in that moment feels like it can change everything if you can just get the right people to care. Change was at the heart of what we tried to accomplish as a student government. After I joined the journalism school as a bright-eyed part-time student in 2019, I was inspired by what I thought could be an opportunity to enact positive change within an institution that has existed for generations before me and will go on to last for generations more. In fact, a few of us part-time students had grown eager to contribute ideas and input into our education here, privileged with the fact that we enjoyed 2 years at the journalism school rather than 1, a whole second year to make an impact. We thought that perhaps we could use our second year as student leaders to help close the gap between our lofty expectations and the reality of the program, the university, and life on campus, as it were. When the coronavirus pandemic struck New York City and the school made the appropriate decision to make the program virtual, we knew it was time to get to work. The administration needed the help of students who had a bit of experience with the journalism school to help with the transition. And as we all learned last year, life doesn't often hand you a second chance to get things right. When a crisis is unfolding before your eyes, it's your responsibility to seek out and help enact change. So we did get to work, and I'm proud of the work we did. We helped deliver emergency financial relief for students with the school, and then launched our own fundraiser to provide further assistance. We created the class government's first ever diversity and inclusion representative. We gave students a chance to meet in person, following rigid safety measures and partnering with every single one of the student affinity groups on campus. When I was elected president, I committed myself to speaking to the students instead of for the students. I simply listened to the community and responded to their needs. Whether it was urging the university to divest from fossil fuels or convincing the school to reconsider rejected applications for emergency aid, it was always because of the conversations and connections I made with my fellow students. And in the end, I can say we did enact change. The university divested from fossil fuels. The school reversed its decision on rejected emergency aid applications. A graduation that was set to be entirely virtual is now hybrid. Some folks may say I took this presidency seriously, and they're right. I very much did, because I believe that we're only given brief moments in life to make big waves, and when those opportunities present themselves, well, you better take full advantage. It's a hope I have for my generation that we will remain unburdened by what may have been considered the confines and limitations for a lifetime before ours. We can choose to live in and create a world in which the lines have been redrawn to conform with the facts that any modern society should acknowledge. Climate change is real. Black lives matter. Women's rights are human rights, including transgender women. And yes, these can all be facts that an unbiased and impartial media ascribe to, the same way we assert that the sky is blue and the grass is green. Now, these may not be the views of the executives for some television networks which describe themselves as news outlets, but these are the belief systems and the truths held by the vast majority of people my age, and even more so those younger than us, regardless of our personal, religious, or political ideologies. And as the world becomes increasingly interconnected through the freedoms and democratization of the internet, my hope is that we can establish a new set of journalistic principles, still based in truth and justice. All it requires is change. And you guys, I know you're destined to change things in a big way. I see it in the way you aggressively report your stories. I see it in the passion you all hold for this work. And I see it in your futures. From the foreign correspondent delivering the latest news from overseas to the local anchorwoman keeping folks up to date on whatever story may be impacting her viewers, her community. The one thing I ask you to never change is yourself. As journalists, we're taught to be flies on the wall, to capture and tell stories without injecting our own input and perspective, and rightfully so. Learning how to be invisible and give your platform to those who need it is one of the most important aspects of our work. But that doesn't mean you should ever forget who you are. We're all storytellers, and yet we each have our own story to tell. Yours is just as beautiful and important as anyone else's. Class of 2021, know that I am always here rooting for you, no matter where your story takes you. Thank you to my mother and father, whose own stories made mine possible. Thank you to my fiance, Lamar, who has had my back from day one. Thank you to my Vice President, Leanne Herter, my Senator, Aruba Kazmi, and the entire Society of Professional Journalists chapter at CJS. It has been an absolute honor to serve as your class president.
Mother stayed on rock eternal, crowned and set upon a height, glorified by light supernal. In thy radiance we see light, torch thy children's lamps to kindle.
Columbia.
Crowned forevermore thy brow. Many a grateful generation hail thee as we hail thee now, till the lordly Hudson seaward cease to roll his heaving tide. Stand, Columbia, alma mater, through the storms of time abide. Stand, Columbia, alma mater, through the storms of time abide.
J-School was hard and challenging and amazing enough when I went. So navigating it through a global pandemic, I cannot imagine. I truly salute you, class of 2021. Remember that the friends you've made over the last year will likely be your colleagues, but may even be your boss one day. So stay in close touch and absolutely lean on each other. And to the degree that it's possible, really try to live in this moment and savor it. Bask in this great accomplishment because you have so much to look forward to. But this is also a really special time and you did it. Congratulations.
Hey everybody, Vladimir Dutia here from CBS News, also Columbia Journalism School, class of 2011. I want to take this opportunity to wish the graduating class of 2021 the very, very, very best. You've all endured under very difficult and challenging circumstances. That's part of what being a journalist is. It is challenging, it is tough, but ultimately it's rewarding, and I wish you the best.
Hey class of 2021, this is Jessica Bruder. I'm with the class of fall 2004. Some of you know me because I'm an adjunct professor and the author of Nomadland, and I just wanted to tell you that I believe in you and that you're going to kick butt out there and that I cannot wait to read your next chapter. Go get them.
Congratulations, J-School graduates of 2021. I'm so excited that you will be joining us here in the field. You likely went through a lot of challenges this year attending school during the pandemic, but those challenges no doubt gave you a lot of skill that we need here in the field. So good luck to you all, and I look forward to seeing what you all accomplish.
If you're graduating now, congratulations, because you're also graduating from a pandemic, and that will make you more resilient in the long run. Now, if you're probably thinking, well, I've been stuck at home for months and I'm disappointed because I didn't have an actual ceremony and the job market sucks, I'm going to tell you the same thing that I told my classmates when I gave my commencement speech back in Venezuela a few moons ago. You, my friend, have a winning ticket to the lottery. Why? Because you have an education that no one can take away from you.
Hello, graduates. Congrats. It's Andrea Sohori, class of 2019. I'm so proud to call you all my J-School family. And if I had one message for you all, it's this. Don't forget the power that journalists hold, the power to change the world. Congrats again, guys. You did it.
Hey there, my name is Tara McCoy, and I am the Rio de Janeiro bureau chief for the Washington Post, and I just wanted to say congratulations. You made it, and wow, what an achievement to do this, especially during the pandemic. And I wanted to say, we need you now more than ever. We need your creativity, we need your voices, and we need your stories. And I'm excited to start reading them. Good luck.
Class of 2021, congratulations. I want to tell you about an idea from my days at Columbia that stayed with me and completely transformed my journalism. And that was knowing that there is no such thing as telling a story from a place of nowhere. We all tell a story from the place in the world we occupy and what lenses that position bestows upon us. So know that about yourself and then focus on the craft, on the soundness of your reporting. Because if you focus on the craft will always embrace you.
The 2021 Knight Bagehot Fellows in Business and Economic Journalism. From Basel, Switzerland, Josie Cox. Thank you for being the very first. You're a pioneer in the field. Next, from London, Olivia Tasman Feld. From Oceanside, New York, Jonathan Lamantia. From Murrieta, California, Julia Love. From Istanbul, Turkey, Asli Pellet. And now, the 2021 Masters of Arts in Journalism. From Claremont, California, Gabrielle Baumgartner. Gabrielle. From Waihee Beach, New Zealand, Thomas Selwyn Ripley Heaton. From Cleveland, Ohio, Charlotte Hugh. From Mexico City, Mexico, Jairo Ibarra. From Brooklyn, New York, Alex Lubin. And from McKinney, Texas, Izzy Ramirez. And now the 2021 Masters of Science in Journalism graduates. From Queens, New York, Christopher Alvarez. From Santa Clara, California, Aruba Kazmi. From the Bronx, New York, Bridget Yasmi Adarkwa. From Amman, Jordan, Hani Abarguti. And from San Diego, California, Katie Anastas. From San Antonio, Texas, Macy Bayern. From Falls Church, Virginia, Grace Benningoff. From Geneva, Switzerland, Sebastian Bieber. From New York, New York, Nadia Batul Bakari. From New York, New York, Isabel Bousquet. From Lee's Summit, Missouri, Margaret Britton Mellish. From the Bronx, New York, Dita Kavardbasha. From Los Angeles, California, Sarah Chung. From Berkeley, California, Miles Gregory Cohen. From Salinas, California, Eduardo Cuevas. From Bassano del Grado, Italy, Marco Della Stella. From San Salvador, El Salvador, Sabrina Escobar Miranda. From Brooklyn, New York, Jeremy Fassler. From Islip, New York, Hannah Flynn. From Boca Raton, Florida, Israel Oliveira Fontura. From New York, New York, Grady Garcia. And from Louisville, Kentucky, Rose Gilbert. From Brooklyn, New York, Brandon Gordon. From New York, New York, David Peter Hansen. From Houston, Texas, Leon Herder. From San Pedro de Marcos, Dominican Republic, Angie M. Hernandez Peña. From Sarasota, Florida, Gabrielle Holliday. From Brooklyn, New York, M. Sky Holly. From Northampton, Massachusetts, Monica Hunter Hart. From Potomac, Maryland, Layla Ilchi. From Ackworth, Georgia, Gladine Innocent. From New York, New York, Taylor Young. From New York, New York, Rebecca Kelleher. From Westfield, New Jersey, Shanna Colleen Kelly. From New York, New York, Tea Kwetidnadze. From Hong Kong, Man Sam Lai. From Norton, Massachusetts, Dan Latu. From Farmingdale, Maine, Jean Lee. From Singapore, Carolyn Lee. From Miami, Florida, Catherine Victoria Lutz. From Seattle, Washington, Karen Minarahu. From San Diego, California, Arcelia Martin. From Littleton, Colorado, Josh Merchant. From Chestnut Hill, Pennsylvania, Avery Schuyler Nunn. From East Orange, New Jersey, Precious Osagi Irase. From Beirut, Lebanon, Dala Osarian. From Toronto, Canada, Akash Parasha. Richa. From Weston, Florida, Joyce Philippe. From New Delhi, India, Gitanjali Punia. From Paris, France, Ali Publi. From Chappaqua, New York, Sophie Rader. From Paris, France, Victor Raison. From Fairhaven, New Jersey, Eli Raho. From Lawrenceville, New Jersey, Persis Rao. And from Bethesda, Maryland, Kira Reinke. From Austin, Texas, Madeline Renberger. From Long Island, New York, Chris Riota. From Little Rock, Arkansas, Rachel Roberts. From New York, New York, Renee Darlene Roden. From San Francisco, California, Leo Russell. From Beijing, China, Xiang Chen. From Chesapeake, Virginia, Jenna Stevenson. From Dearborn, Michigan, Catherine Stockram. From Seattle, Washington, Jack Stone Truitt. From Manhasset Hills, New York, Artemis Sikeros Tsiskaris. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Sebastian Tainda. From Brooklyn, New York, Corey Way. From From New York, New York, Lenka White. From San Jose, California, Seiji Yamashita. From Yorktown Heights, New York, Orenia Yankopoulos. And from Beijing, China, Haley Zhao. And now the 2021 Doctor of Philosophy and Communications graduates. From Brooklyn, New York, Gal Beckerman. From Barcelona, Spain, Luis de Nadal. The 2021 Knight Bagehot Fellows in Business and Economics Journalism. From New York, New York, Don Kissy. From Washington, D.C., Amanda Macias. From Huntington Beach, California, Darius Raffayan. From Hong Kong, Blake Schmidt. The 2021 Spencer Fellows in Education Journalism. From Sherman Oaks, California, Max Friedman. From Ann Arbor, Michigan, David Jesse. From Los Angeles, California, Sonali Kohli. From Lexington, Massachusetts, Linda K. Wertheimer. The 2021 Masters of Arts in Journalism graduates. From Los Angeles and Montreal, Joseph Jedion. From Miami, Florida, Danny Grande. 2021 Masters of Science in Journalism and Computer Science graduates. From Cleveland, Ohio, Joyce Gao. From Los Angeles, California, Elika Mahajan. From Irvine, California, Michelle Quinn. From Fuzhou, China, Yongkai Tang. 2021 Masters of Science in Journalism. From Morristown, New Jersey, Matt Allen. From New York City, New York, Remy Bahati. From Beijing, China, Stella Chai. Yoshkar Ola, Russia, Anastasia Carrier. From Syracuse, New York, Elena Ciro. From Brooklyn, New York, Kate Christebeck. From Hong Kong, Hugh Tick Heidi Chu. From New York, New York, Dawn Clancy. From Derby, Kansas, Joseph Clark. From Grosse Isle, Michigan, Monica Cole. From Oyster Bay, New York, Joaquin Contreras. From Lake Forest, Illinois, Matthew Duro. From Alexandria, Egypt, Alai Elassar. From Havana, Cuba, Laura Garcel Nemilovich. From Erie, Pennsylvania, Jacob Genius. From Palo Alto, California, Cassidy McCann Jensen. From Santa Cruz, California, Sophie Annabelle Kamkar. From San Jose, California, Michal Kranz. From Ann Arbor, Michigan, Joshua Lash. From Woodside, New York, Griselda Lopez. From Purchase, New York, Joseph Lovinger. From Los Angeles, California, Fei Liu. From Querétaro, Mexico, Fernanda Martinez. From Spring Hope, North Carolina, Ronnie Michaela Mills. From Colorado Springs, Colorado, Nicole McNulty. From Brookline, Massachusetts, Michaela Moscofu. From Buenos Aires, Argentina, Ali Pichon. From High Falls, New York, Elias Primov. From Ridgewood, New Jersey, Tatum Dalila Rezvani. From Manila, the Philippines, Matthew Samuel Rezo Cruz. From Toronto, Canada, Anna Bianca Roach. From High Point, North Carolina, Lee Sanderlin. From Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Jana Alexandra Schaefer. From Los Angeles, California, Danielle Sine. From New York, New York, Kat Smith. From Silver Spring, Maryland, Savannah Tryans Fernandez. From New York, New York, Masha Udenseva Brenner. So thank you again, and congratulations to all of you. One more round of applause, please.